Hi, folks. Thanks for joining us once again. It's Kyle Brittain, weather specialist and former wildland firefighter, and I'm joined once again by Mike Flannigan, wildfire expert, and we're going to talk about what's going on with the wildfire situation here in Alberta and what may be to come in the coming days. So with that, Mike, welcome, and we will jump right in.
Good day, Kyle. Yes, things are improving. To season 511 fires, that's a lot. 83 are active. Of those, 23 are out of control, but many of those have been receiving rain. The far north is still a concern, and we'll talk about that in a bit. So let's pull up the area burn for Alberta. And for Canada, we're at 1.7 million, okay, which the 10-year running average is about 2.6 million. So, hey, we're almost there. So this goes back to 1959. And you can see 2023 is already in second place. And we're only in May. 1981, very hot, dry August contributed to that record-breaking year. Now, people will say there was more fire back before this, but reliable records really start around 1953. I'll be updating this graph. 1950 was a really big year with the Chinchaga fire, 1.4 to 1.7 million hectares for one fire, but between BC and Alberta. 38 was busy, 49, 1919, but unreliable because we don't have a complete data set. But there was years with lots of fire activity, but in the reliable record, 2023 is already in second place, and who knows, we could catch number one.
Incredible. That's it's pretty intense. And we're talking about the rain that's coming here. So we can see in Western Canada on this image, we can see that upper low that's starting to develop over BC. That trough is kind of getting into BC, and we're going to see it close off. And we're already seeing precipitation in Western Alberta. But really the most striking thing about this image here is just the smoke that's spreading far and wide. It's blanketing the prairie provinces, a lot of the northern tier of the U.S., and right across the the Great Lakes out into the ocean. But it goes further than that. We'll look a little bit more at that in a little bit here.
Yes, lightning. It's been an active day, and I'm in BC, and if this was July or August, I'd be really concerned. But there was a fair bit of rain, especially in the southeast and in the northeast with these systems, and there's still a lot of snow in upper elevations. But about half the fires in BC thus far have been lightning caused, and that's unusual. Usually human caused dominate in the spring. Just like in Alberta, it's humans. The lightning season doesn't usually kick in this early. So a particular concern is the ones in northern Alberta, northeastern BC, and even into the territories where the weather looks conducive for the next 5 to 10 days for fire activity there.
Yeah, definitely. And we were talking earlier, Mike, about how wildfire smoke can actually enhance lightning activity in storm clouds, right?
Yeah, there's a couple of studies that show smoke suppresses rainfall and promotes lightning activities, so promotes fire. And I think you were telling me about a story in July 2015?
Yeah, July 2015. That's when I sort of became aware of that phenomenon where we had it was Stampede Week in Calgary. Overnight, we had a kind of a cold front sink south and bring a bunch of smoke-filled air into our region. And then we had a little upper disturbance that was slowly moving north in southern Alberta that night. And I just recall I've never seen such active cloud-to-ground lightning for a period of about like 4 hours, like 5 to 9 in the morning, just east of Calgary. Just incredibly intense cloud to ground lightning. Lots more positive strikes as well in there. So yeah, just we can see that's just very interesting to think of how the wildfire smoke particles can maybe be injected into the cloud, and of course it influences sort of the cloud electrification process. So probably cloud microphysics, the cloud condensation nuclei, ice nuclei inside the cloud, and the arrangement and distribution of that. So very interesting. Something worth watching going forward. Currently we're seeing already the influence. This is the firm site here, once again, satellite derived fire behavior, or fire activity rather. And if you go to advanced mode, time-based, we can see that it has been fairly quiet over the last several hours. Not unsurprisingly, but we can see in the far northern parts of Alberta, it's been more active up there. But where the rain and cloud and cooler conditions have been taking over, we've been seeing some improvements on the fires there, and into northeast BC already, where we're seeing a lot of rain starting to fall, right?
Yeah, and this gives the crews some time to work on these fires to help put them out. But the rain is concern after a fire because the trees are now dead, and that rain can fall right to the ground. And ash at times can be hydrophobic. It means it repels water, so it just flows downhill, especially if you have areas of topography. So flooding, debris flows, these are common after fire. So it's something to watch out for as significant amounts of rain are falling in parts of Alberta and BC.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just starting to spool up now that low. We're starting to see rain starting to pick up in parts of northern Alberta, but it's already, ongoing. That Fort St. John area just north. That's going to be good news for those fires around there. But of course, if you get a lot of rain all at once, that's when we can see the risk of those flash floods, debris flows that Mike was talking about.
Yeah. And this is a radar loop, and the brighter the color, the heavier the rain.
Yeah, exactly. You can see that easterly flow here, and then the Rocky Mountains are kind of back here. So you're going to see a lot of that rain kind of piling up on the front range of the Rockies there due to upslope flow. Of course, that smoke we can see here. This is that model, the RAP model from the US, just going everywhere. Here's where we're at now. And I mean, we've been seeing it down in Texas and Ontario, and then it's been going out to Europe, right?
Yeah, it's smoke can circle the globe. And I think smoke from the earlier May has already circled the globe. And our friends in Canada and United States are saying, blame Alberta. And largely most of this smoke is from Alberta. Saskatchewan, BC have been contributing as well, but blame Alberta.
Yeah, and this rain will be so good for knocking that down a little bit. I'm sure. Hopefully the models are kind of picking up on that, but you would expect the smoke activity to kind of get knocked back with 50 plus millimeters of rain on a lot of those fires. Not the northern fires, northern Saskatchewan, unfortunately, into Northwest Territories, far northern Alberta, but the kind of the lion's share of those fires in west central Alberta are going to be, not as smoky in the next few days. But
thankfully, yes.
Yeah. Again, looking at the purple air real-time map here, once it loads for us, we will be able to see that there is still a lot of poor air quality over Alberta. And that's nasty stuff because it's raining. And so, it's like soupy and disgusting at the same time. Before we kind of rinse out the smoke, it's not healthy to be outside.
You have a rainstorm and you have a dirty car after the rainstorm.
Yeah. So the rain and the wind will help to kind of clear out the air. But we can see it's gotten down into Calgary again this morning. But southwestern Alberta, you can kind of see that boundary down in the south where we've got those clean westerlies, clean BC air coming into southwestern Alberta there.
You posted a video on Twitter the other day of your drive to the west, and you're going from choking smoke to blue skies, and it was almost like a smoke front.
Exactly. Like that's what's really fascinating about the terrain here in southern Alberta is you get this it's kind of the Chinook front or the dry line sometimes in the summer, and often it'll sit right over here, like this little bump. If you can see here, that's Scott Lake Hill. There's a local kind of high point in the terrain, a ridge that goes along here. And often, like, no matter what the weather, if it's upslope or downslope, you'll see the boundary there. You'll see fog on one side and clear on the other. But look at that. Completely gross air in Calgary and very nice air out there in the Bow Valley. So there's a smoke front. It's probably still there just before you crest that hill. So,
wow.
Yeah. It's one of those times of the year, Alberta can have two smoke seasons. Sometimes we get one or the other or neither or both. But, all of our fires are north of the Calgary, Edmonton area right now. So if you get a northerly wind during a smoky, fiery year, you get smoke. And BC, later in the summer, BC, Pacific Northwest, once these guys start getting their annual wildfire season, then the west wind brings the smoke. But right now, the west wind brings the clean air. So we're kind of cheering on that westerly wind. Just quickly here, again, just to put this whole situation into perspective, it's not just a wildfire story, it's also an agricultural moisture story. This is percent of average precipitation that we've seen since September 1st, and you can see it's been very dry. At the end of that triple dip La Nina, third year La Nina, it was very dry. Parts of southern Alberta, maybe parts of the BC interior received near normal precipitation in that time frame, but in general, you can see here now with the percent of normal soil moisture, it's very dry out there, less than 40% of normal in much of central Alberta. It's kind of 40 to 60% of normal in northwest Alberta. We're going to see some big improvements with that rain event in these areas, but not so great for a lot of the Saskatchewan grain belt, central Alberta. Still very dry, but we have time. We have time for the June monsoon. Some mid-range models showing some wetter conditions, perhaps establishing themselves in parts of the prairies. But in general, yes, we are very dry across much of the prairies. Of course, that translates to, with the North American Drought Monitor as of April 30th here, we can see some moderate to what they call severe short-term drought anyway in parts of Western Canada. If you compare this map to last year this time, we can see that it was very much, we didn't have much of the drought in the boreal forest, much of British Columbia. It was more of an agricultural story where southern Alberta was having some severe to extreme drought. But I mean, that quickly changed, as soon as you get some rain. This is highly reactive to how much rain we get, because this year, again, we're looking at not much in the way of drought currently in southern Alberta, but it's starting to build in BC and much of the boreal there. So Mike, why don't you talk a little bit about what's going on in BC right now?
Well, it's still dry where I am, but there's been a lot of rain in the southern interior, around the Okanagan and the southeast, down trees and severe thunderstorms. And we're getting rain now, so that's going to knock that in the Fort St. John area, significant rain. So that will knock that down. And this is from yesterday. So I expect today's fire danger being a lot lower, except for that extreme northeast corner where Fort Nelson is. They could avoid most of the rain, and so the fire danger will probably remain high. But otherwise, things are looking much calmer.
Yeah, and we've got that one lightning fire a few days ago that started in Kootenay National Park. Amazing. It's early to have so many lightning fires, hey?
Yeah, I mean, typically lightning fire season is July and August in BC and in the Rockies, and that's our fire season too. But Parks is saying it's really dry there, and to get a lightning fire in May is unusual. And recall last autumn, there was a lightning-caused fire near Saskatchewan Crossing in Alberta in mid-October, okay, which is also really strange. So we're moving from fire season to fire year, almost. Okay, it's just, yeah, anytime the snow's gone, we can chance for fire is there and real.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I was just out driving in the Rockies a couple of days ago, and it is unbelievable how much the Rockies look like summer already, like early July. When you take a drive here in Kananaskis country or out in the Bow Valley here, Banff National Park, we had very low snowpack, almost record low snowpack. And then you combine that with the two heat waves that we had, and it looks like July already. And so it's kind of like shades of 2003 in a way. Hopefully we do get that June monsoon, and parts of the interior here where we do have some of these out of control, smaller fires, some lightning fires, some human caused, the rain is going to really help that situation in the meantime. But we've got very low snowpack in the mountains right now, and quite dry conditions in the national parks there and in the Rockies of BC and Alberta. So that's going to definitely be something worth watching, because if we move back into a very dry pattern this summer, we're going to be seeing establishing of drought in the prairie region. We're going to be seeing perhaps some water shortages coming out of the mountains and that wildfire season. So we really, really need rain in a meaningful way. We'll just quickly take a look at the forecast here, what we're looking at. So we were talking about how we expect this heavy rain here in west central Alberta, northwestern Alberta, northeast BC to really improve the fire situation in this area here, knock the fires back quite a bit so that we can get fire crews on there and get some significant progress. We've got over 2,500 people here from out of province, out of country, military. Thank you very much. It's awesome. You guys are doing awesome work. Given how challenging this season is going. So this week will be critical. This rain is a godsend, so to speak, and it's certainly going to be helping with fire crews on the ground, right?
Yeah, a great help, but there might be some localized flooding with this amount of rain. And, do notice northern Alberta, those grays that's not much rain. The whites are no rain. Okay. So in parts of northern Saskatchewan, that's where, the action's going to be. So it's shifting to the north. It hasn't gone away. But fortunately, there's not as many active fires in this region. There's not as many human caused, they're primarily lightning caused. And it's still early in the lightning season, but still something to watch out for.
Absolutely. That rain is really well timed. And we're looking here. This is the forecast for 500 millibar winds and height. So we can see this trough off the BC coast. And as that moves inland, we're going to see it close off, give us that upper low, that deep easterly flow, upslope flow, and some rising air on the large scale, which is what's driving that heavy precipitation through central western Alberta, northeast BC. It doesn't hang around for too long, though. It gives us some heavy rainfall. Perhaps not flooding. It's these types of upper lows. If we get these kind of stall out for longer periods, like with the Calgary floods in 2013, you'll have this upper low kind of park itself over eastern Washington, northern Idaho. And if you draw, kind of drawing from some anomalously large precipitable water, some, good moisture sources you can have, and it kind of parks and precipitates for days and days, that's when you start to see that flood risk. It kind of gets caught up in the upper flow here fairly quickly, so it gives us a good dousing of rain. We do have a lot of kind of buffers in place on the landscape for against, if we have rain that comes more slowly, it'll be, good for preventing flooding situations in Alberta. But like if this heavy rain we're talking about in the hydrophobic ground after following wildfire, we're gonna have to watch for some localized flooding, debris flows in that area. But in general, this will be really good news, especially for agricultural lands. We do see the trend through the rest of this week, kind of a fairly slack flow aloft. I mean, this isn't very strong. This is, again, 500 millibars, middle part of the troposphere. And we do have kind of a southwest to northeasterly jet, some upper level ridging perhaps over the prairie provinces, which means we're likely going to be seeing continued warming and drying in northern Alberta. And so we get out kind of to the 7-day time frame. And beyond that, it starts to become a little bit more uncertain what's going to happen. Some models showing the potential for some really wet weather beginning to develop again. But as we see continued kind of upper level ridging in Western Canada, warm and dry conditions, we would expect to see these fires up north continuing to burn. And perhaps some of these fires, if we don't start to see more rain within another week or so, they could start kind of lighting up again, right?
Yeah, it only takes a few days of warm, dry, windy weather for fires to wake up again, or for new fire starts. But the longer range, suggesting maybe the pattern's changing, and let's hope so, and let's hope our Alberta fire season is almost over. But who knows? So, okay, if we get hot, dry, windy episodes in June, those monsoons hold off, or in July and August when hot, dry, windy weather in northern Alberta is not unheard of. And so I guess it's wait and see.
Yeah, exactly. So lots to keep an eye out, but that is the current situation with the fires in Alberta. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. We always appreciate you taking the time to watch. And we'll catch you next time.
Cheers.